My name is Marcus Thorne, and my world is built on a foundation of concrete, steel, and meticulously scheduled time. I am the CEO of Thorne Development, a name that echoes in boardrooms and carries weight on the stock market. My days are a series of calculated moves, of meetings and projections, of black coffee and tailored suits. My apartment is a minimalist sanctuary of glass and gray, overlooking a city that never sleeps. Much like me, it's a life I built, brick by painful brick, to insulate myself from a past I can't outrun. Grief is a funny thing. You think you've buried it, encased it in the leaden tomb of routine and ambition. But it's not dead. It's just waiting for a crack in the armor, a moment of weakness. My moment came on a Tuesday. It was an ordinary Tuesday, which is perhaps why it hit so hard. I was in the daily grind, a coffee shop 2 blocks from my office, a place I frequented not for its charm but for its efficiency. I was reviewing quarterly reports on my tablet, my mind a whir of percentages and profit margins. The air smelled of burnt espresso and sugar, a smell I associated with productivity. That's when I felt it, a tiny, hesitant tug on the sleeve of my $1,000 suit jacket. I glanced down, my brow furrowed in annoyance at the interruption. Standing there was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, with 2 pigtails that bounced, with a life of their own and enormous brown eyes that held a universe of nervous hope. She was clutching a slightly crumpled piece of paper in one hand, a drawing of some kind. I was about to dismiss her, to look around for her parent with a pointed glare, but she spoke first. Her voice was small, a little shaky, but clear as a bell in the coffee shop din. "Excuse me, mister," she whispered, looking up at me as if I were a mountain. "Can you be my daddy for just one day?" The world didn't just slow down, it shattered. The clatter of the barista steaming milk, the low hum of conversation, the tapping of my own pen against the tablet screen, it all vanished. In its place was a deafening silence, the kind I hadn't heard in 5 years. It was the silence of a hospital room after the machines are turned off. My breath hitched in my chest. My meticulously constructed walls of concrete and steel crumbled into dust. The black CEO, the man who commanded rooms and moved millions, was gone. In his place was just a man, a broken man, staring at a little girl who looked impossibly fragile. Daddy, the word was a ghost on my lips, a name I hadn't heard spoken in my direction since Lily, my daughter, with her sunshine laugh and her habit of leaving tiny, paint-stained fingerprints on everything she touched. She would have been 7 this year. She would have had pigtails, just like this little girl. My vision swam, the little girl's face blurred, and for a heart-stopping second, I saw Lily standing there, her head tilted in that curious way she had. The reports on my tablet, the quarterly earnings, the entire empire I had built to forget her. It was all meaningless ash. "What did you say?" I managed to croak out, my voice a raw, unfamiliar thing. The little girl flinched, as if my tone had scared her. She held up the crumpled paper. It was a flyer, brightly colored, with cartoon kids holding hands with their fathers. "It's Father-Daughter Day at my school," she explained, her voice even smaller now. "We have to bring our daddy for the 3-legged race and the cupcake decorating." Just then, a woman rushed over, her face a mask of frantic apology. "Mia, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I just turned my back for a second." She gently took the little girl's shoulder. "Mia, you can't just go up to strangers and ask them things like that." She looked at me, her eyes wide with embarrassment. She was probably in her late 20s, with tired lines around her eyes, but a fierce, protective love for her daughter that was plain to see. "I am so sorry, sir." Her father, he's not around. The school sent this flyer home, and she's been so upset. I just stared, unable to form a response. My mind was a battlefield. One side, the logical CEO side, was screaming at me, "Say no, this is insane. This is unprofessional. This is dangerous emotional territory. You have a 2 p.m. conference call with the board." But the other side was just a father who ached with a phantom limb, the phantom weight of a little girl's hand in his. I looked down at Mia. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at her worn-out sneakers, her shoulders slumped in defeat. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. That tear did it. It broke the deadlock. It was a tear I had seen before on another small face, in another life. My carefully planned day, my reports, my conference call, they evaporated. I heard a voice, my own but distant, say the words before I had even fully decided to speak them. What time? The woman, Anna, her name was Anna, stared at me in disbelief. What? The father-daughter day, I clarified, my voice gaining a bit of its usual steadiness, though I felt anything but steady inside. What time is it? And where? Anna just blinked. It's tomorrow, at Northwood Elementary. From 10 in the morning until 1. She was still looking at me as if I might be a madman. Mia's head snapped up. Her eyes, now glistening with tears, were wide with a fragile, burgeoning hope that was almost too painful to look at. I took a deep breath, the air feeling thick and heavy. Okay, I said, nodding slowly. Okay, I can do that. I looked directly at Mia. I can be your daddy, for just one day. Her face broke into a smile so radiant it felt like the sun coming out after a long, cold winter. It was a smile that didn't just light up her face, it lit up the dark, dusty corners of my soul. And in that moment, I knew I had just made the most illogical, unprofessional, and terrifyingly important decision of my life. That night, sleep was a stranger. My apartment, usually a refuge of sterile order, felt like a cage. I paced the floor, the city lights below blurring into streaks of gold and white. Every shadow held a memory. I saw Lily, age 4, standing on a stool in the kitchen, determined to help me make pancakes, getting more flour on herself than in the bowl. I remembered the feel of her small, warm body curled against my chest as we read bedtime stories, her sleepy breath on my neck. I remembered the day my wife, Sarah, and I brought her home from the hospital, the overwhelming terror and love that swamped me as I held this tiny, perfect person. And then came the other memories, the ones I kept locked away, the beeping machines, the hushed conversations with doctors, the look in Sarah's eyes as our world fell apart. We had grieved differently. I had thrown myself into my work, building an empire as a monument to my failure to protect my own daughter. Sarah had tried to talk, to feel, to connect, but I had walled myself off. The silence between us grew until it was a chasm we could no longer cross. We separated a year after Lily was gone. The divorce was quiet, civil, another transaction in a life that had become full of them. Now, a little girl named Mia had taken a sledgehammer to those walls. I stood in front of my closet, a long row of identical dark suits. What does a dad wear to a father-daughter day? I had no idea. I pulled out a pair of dark jeans I hadn't worn in years and a simple gray sweater. It felt like a costume. I felt like an imposter. The next morning, I drove a car I rarely used, a simple, dark sedan, not the chauffeured town car I usually took to the office. My hands were clammy on the steering wheel. I was more nervous than I'd been before my first major hostile takeover. I pulled up to a small, neat apartment building, the kind with flower pots on the balconies. Anna was waiting outside, wringing her hands. Mia stood beside her, vibrating with excitement. She was wearing a pink dress, with a big bow in her hair. When she saw my car, she started jumping up and down. He came. Mommy, he really came. Anna gave me a grateful, watery smile as I got out of the car. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you. You have no idea what this means to her. It's okay, I said, the words feeling inadequate. Mia ran up to me and, without a moment's hesitation, took my hand. Her hand was tiny in mine, warm and trusting. The simple contact sent a jolt through me, a mix of pure terror and a forgotten warmth. My hand instinctively tightened around hers, a protective gesture I hadn't made in 5 years. My heart ached, with a bittersweet pain that was so intense, it almost made me double over. We walked toward the school, a low brick building buzzing with the chaotic energy of children. The playground was filled with dads and daughters, big, burly men in flannel shirts, young dads in hoodies, distinguished-looking grandfathers. They all had a natural, easy way about them, laughing and chatting with their kids. I felt like an alien who had just landed on a strange planet, okay? First up is the three-legged race, a cheerful teacher with a megaphone announced. Mia looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. Are you fast? I almost laughed. I ran on a treadmill every morning at 5 a.m., a punishing, joyless routine. I'm okay, I said. A teacher came over with a strip of cloth to tie our legs together. I knelt down, my knee popping in protest. As I tied the knot around my ankle and Mia's, I was acutely aware of how small and fragile she was. We stood up, a clumsy, three-legged creature. Ready? I asked. Ready, she squealed. The whistle blew. It was chaos. We stumbled, we lurched, we nearly fell over twice. Mia was giggling so hard she could barely run. And then, a strange thing happened. I started to laugh, too, a real, genuine laugh that came from my belly. It felt rusty, foreign, but wonderful. We came in second to last, collapsing over the finish line in a heap of laughter, lying there on the grass, with the sun on my face and a little girl's giggles filling the air. I felt a crack of light pierce through my long-enduring darkness. Next was the craft station. The task was to decorate a picture frame. The table was a mess of glitter, glue, and brightly colored pom-poms. Mia took charge immediately, directing me with the seriousness of a general. Okay, you put the blue glitter on that side, she instructed, pointing a glue-covered finger. Because blue is a calm color, and you like calm colors, right? I blinked. Yes, I suppose I do. What's your favorite animal? She asked, sticking a pink pom-pom right in the center of the frame. The question was so simple, so innocent. No one had asked me a question like that in a decade. My favorite animal. I had to think. A lion, I guess, I said finally. Why? She asked, not looking up from her work. Because they're strong, I said. The corporate answer coming automatically, and they protect their family. She paused and looked at me, her brown eyes serious. My mommy is like a lion, she said quietly. She protects me. Then she smiled. And today, you're a lion, too. My throat tightened. I just nodded, unable to speak, and focused on carefully pouring a line of blue glitter, my large hands feeling clumsy and useless. We worked in silence for a few minutes, our hands sticky with glue, the smell of paint and cardboard in the air. We weren't a CEO and a stranger's child. We were just a people making a lopsided, glitter-bombed picture frame. When we were done, she held it up proudly. It was a beautiful disaster. The final event was cupcake decorating. Each dad-daughter pair got to plain cupcakes and a whole arsenal of frosting. And sprinkles. Mia went for a mountain of pink frosting. On hers, topped with a rainbow of sprinkles. What about you? She asked, pushing the other cupcake toward me. How are you going to decorate yours? I looked at the plain cupcake. It felt like a blank slate. I thought of Lily. Her favorite color was yellow. She used to say it was the color of happiness. Slowly, I picked up the tube of yellow frosting. I didn't make a mountain like Mia. I just swirled a simple, soft pattern on top. Then, I took the silver sprinkles and carefully made a single letter in the center. L for Lily. Mia peered over. Ooh, L, is that for lion? I felt a tear escape and roll down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away, but she saw. Her happy expression softened into one of concern. Are you sad? She asked, her voice a gentle whisper. I looked at her, at this little girl who had so effortlessly walked into the most fortified part of my heart. And for the first time in years, I told a piece of the truth. A little bit, I said, my voice thick, the yellow frosting. It was my daughter's favorite color. She's in heaven now. Mia's face didn't register pity, just a quiet understanding that was far beyond her years. She reached out her small, sticky hand and placed it on my arm. My daddy is in heaven, too, she said softly. Mommy says he's a star now, watching over us. Maybe your daughter and my daddy are friends up there. The dam broke. I didn't sob, but silent tears tracked down my face. I wasn't Marcus Thorne, CEO. I was just a dad, sitting on a tiny plastic chair in a school gymnasium, sharing a moment of profound, heartbreaking connection with a 6-year-old girl. She didn't say anything else. She just kept her hand on my arm, a small anchor in my sea of grief. When it was time to go, The cheerful teacher with the megaphone announced the end of the event. Walking back to the car, Mia was much quieter. She held my hand tightly, as if she didn't want to let go. The drive to her apartment was silent, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was full of the day we had shared. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Mia had fallen asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window, the glittery, lopsided picture frame held securely in her lap. A faint smile was on her lips. Looking at her, I felt a fierce, protective wave wash over me. It wasn't just a memory of what I'd felt for Lily. It was new. It was for Mia. When we arrived, I carried her up to the apartment. Anna opened the door, her eyes immediately finding her sleeping daughter in my arms. I gently laid Mia on her bed, pulling a unicorn-themed blanket over her. She stirred but didn't wake. Back in the living room, Anna handed me a cup of tea I hadn't asked for but was grateful for. "I watched you from the window," she said, her voice soft. "I saw you laugh. Mia hasn't been this happy in a very long time. Since her father," she trailed off, her own grief shadowing her face. "He was a soldier. He died in Afghanistan 2 years ago. So that was it. We were just strangers, bound by a shared, unspoken sorrow." "I'm sorry," I said. And the words felt real, not just a polite platitude. "I'm sorry, too," she replied, her gaze knowing. "When Mia asked if you were sad, I saw it on your face. You're a father, aren't you?" I nodded, my gaze dropping to the cup in my hands. Her name was Lily. She would have been 7. We sat in a comfortable silence for a long time, two lonely people finding a moment of solace in a shared story of loss. Before I left, Anna stopped me at the door. "Marcus," she said, using my first name, "what you did today, it was more than just a kind gesture. You gave my daughter a perfect day. You gave her a memory she will treasure forever. Thank you." I looked back toward Mia's room. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." As I was about to walk out, a small voice called my name. "Marcus." I turned. Mia was standing in the hallway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. She ran to me and threw her arms around my legs in a tight hug. "Thank you, Daddy, for a day." She mumbled into my trousers. Then she pressed something into my hand. It was the picture frame. "This is for you, so you don't forget me." I knelt down so I was at her eye level. "I could never forget you, Mia," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I hugged her back, a real hug, breathing in the faint scent of sugar and childhood. It was a hug that felt like coming home after a long, weary journey. Driving back to my empty apartment, the city lights seemed different, brighter, less lonely. I didn't turn on the television or check my emails. I walked over to the marble mantelpiece, a cold, empty space that held nothing but a designer clock. I gently pushed the clock aside and placed the glittery, lopsided picture frame in its place. In the center, I slipped the photo I kept hidden in my wallet, the one I only looked at on her birthday. It was a picture of Lily, age 4, smiling, with a smear of yellow frosting on her nose. The frame was garish and messy. It didn't match the decor. It was the most beautiful thing in the entire apartment. I looked at it for a long time, at the picture of the daughter I had lost, framed by the handiwork of the little girl who had, for a few short hours, brought me back to life. A single tear fell, then another. But these weren't just tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude, tears of release. Then, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over a name I had tried so hard to forget because it hurt too much to remember. "Sarah." I pressed the call button. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice wary. "Surprised, Marcus?" "Sarah," I said, my voice cracking. I took a deep, shaky breath. "Sarah, I need to talk. Something happened today. I met a little girl, and I think I'm finally ready to talk about Lily." I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if Sarah and I could ever find our way back to each other. I didn't know if I would see Mia and Anna again. But for the first time in 5 years, the future wasn't a black, empty void. It was a blank page. And on that page, thanks to a little girl's plea in a coffee shop, there was finally room for hope. My world of concrete and steel had a crack in it now, and through that crack, the light was starting to get in.